We are about to start the second recording for the Ecology unit for Tara Stout at Limestone Community High School in biology. Previously, we looked at some of the general information associated with ecology and looking at how we defined some of the terms, especially the word ecology itself. We broke down ecology into ology, meaning the study of, and ecos, referring to the interactions between things. And looking at species relationships is really one of the primary ways that we are going to focus on those interactions between living things. Once I can get it working. There we go. One of the easiest ways to look at species relationships is looking at those feeding relationships. Are you predator? Are you prey? And how does that go along with your niche or the role that you play in your environment? First, we will define the two different types of living things. We have autotroph, and then we also have heterotroph. You can see that they both have the base word troph as a part of their term. Troph is going to refer to energy. So an autotroph is going to be something that can make its own food. So auto is going to be on its own without assistance. So autotroph makes its energy on its own. Normally, or when you first learned of these, you probably learned of them as producers, which isn't wrong, but we're going to use the grown-up science word of autotroph. These organisms are going to make their own food from solar or chemical energy, and probably the easiest one to think of with an autotroph are going to be things like plants. We are not autotrophs, so instead we are a heterotroph. So again, there's troph, which up here, as we said, meant energy. But next we have this word hetero, which we are going to talk a lot about in different contexts in this class. Hetero means other or opposite. And if you remember that, it'll actually come in handy when we start talking about genetics too. Heterotrophs are going to be organisms that have to get their energy from other sources. They are organisms that cannot produce their own food. So this is going to be, like I said, like us, pretty much all animals. Some bacteria can be considered autotrophs, especially your chemosynthetic or photosynthetic green bacteria. And then all animals are heterotrophs, and so are all fungi. Protists, which is another kind of catch-all group of organisms, some can be autotrophs and some can be heterotrophs, but we'll cross that bridge next semester. For now, we're going to focus mostly on true autotrophs, organisms that can make their own food, or true heterotrophs, organisms that have to eat other sources for food. Now, if you're an autotroph, you can either make your food or you can't. So those that can't are then considered to be heterotrophs. Heterotrophs, as you know, can eat different types of things. First, we have an herbivore. Herbivores are going to be organisms that feed strictly on plants. And you can tell if something is an herbivore, not necessarily strictly by behavior, but by its tooth structure. Organisms that are herbivores are going to have the molars, the flat back teeth, and also the chompy incisors, and I could be totally spelling that wrong, the front teeth to really cut through the hard cell wall of the plants. Next, we have carnivores. These are going to be organisms that actively kill and eat other heterotrophs. These are going to be your hunters, your typical predators, and their tooth structure is going to be those of the canines. They are going to be sharp. And that is necessary for ripping and tearing into the flesh of those other heterotrophs. Then we have a scavenger. Scavengers may seem like they are similar to carnivores, but they have a behavioral component in that they eat animals that have already died. Scavengers have not necessarily something you can see in their tooth structure, but they often have a digestive component that allows them to be able to eat organisms or eat animals specifically that have already started to decay and that normally might make somebody like us sick for eating it. But scavengers have that extra part. So carnivores kill and eat other heterotrophs. Make sure you know that part. They are active hunters, and we can add that to our notes. Active hunters. Scavengers eat animals that have already died, and they usually have a stomach or a digestive component that is a little bit changed from the carnivores. Next, we have omnivores. This is where we come in. We are omnivores. And the Latin term omni means all. So we are an omnivore. We eat everything. We eat both plant and animal foods. And because of this, we have all tooth types. And then finally we have decomposers. These are going to be organisms that break down and absorb nutrients from dead organisms. This dead organisms, you can see, is very general. It's not specific like in scavengers that talk strictly about animals. In decomposers, this is going to be organisms that break down and absorb nutrients from dead plant matter, dead animal matter, dead fungus matter, pretty much anything. Now, with this, when you're trying to figure out what type of heterotroph you're looking at, you are going to not necessarily look strictly at behavior. We are talking about structure here. So if you have a person, for example, who is a vegan or vegetarian, they are still considered to be omnivores because of their structure, not their behavior. Looking at species relationships, these are going to be organisms that don't necessarily have a predator-prey relationship, but instead these are going to be ones that have survival or living relationships, which is what is symbiosis. A symbiotic relationship is a living relationship between two organisms, and there's 3 different types. We have commensalism. In commensalism, you'll have one species benefit, and the other one, it doesn't really matter if it's a part of that relationship or not. It is neither helped nor harmed. It's just kind of along for the ride and just a part of the team, even though it doesn't get anything and it doesn't get harmed in the process. Next, we have mutualism, and if you look at the base word here, mutual, to be mutual means that you both work. So in a mutualistic relationship, both species benefit from that symbiosis. And the last one is parasitism. And again, if you look at that parasite, this is where one benefits at the expense of the other. So the other is harmed in the process. Now, there are lots of different types of each of these symbiotic relationships. So I'm intentionally leaving these example areas blank because I want you to go out onto the web, go into books, think about your own experiences, and come up with a commensalism relationship, a mutualism relationship, and a parasitic relationship on your own. You can take the opportunity to do that now. If you haven't had the opportunity to look them up, or if you're still writing, go ahead and pause this video. These 3 images that are a part of this screen do show some examples of organisms in symbiotic relationships. This one first here, looking at the water buffalo with its companion bird. The bird, this is actually, I'm going to give you the scenario and you figure out what type it is. The buffalo receives a cleaning service from the bird. The bird picks off little bugs from all over the buffalo and eats them. So that's what the buffalo benefits from. And then the bird gets protection from the water buffalo. I mean, I'm not going to mess with something with those big horns. And the bird also gets food. So both organisms are benefiting from this relationship. So what kind of symbiotic relationship would that be? Commensalism, mutualism, or parasitism? Looking here, we see a whale, and its anterior portion or its mouth portion has been encrusted with small shelled organisms. These might even be either just parasites or some type of barnacle. What this does is it hinders the mouth movement of the whale, so it doesn't allow the whale to open its mouth as much, to maybe not even be able to open it at all. And so the whale then will not be able to feed as efficiently. So these little organisms benefit, and the whale is harmed in the process. So that can be commensalism, mutualism, or parasitism. And this odd-looking one at the top, this is a type of aquatic organism that attaches to the underside of a large swimming animal, like a shark or maybe even a large whale. And it doesn't do anything to whatever it attaches to. It just kind of moves along and just uses that organism as a way to move around and also possibly get protection. This organism that attaches with these little suckers, they do not harm the other organism they attach to, and they can also feed off some of the scraps that are left over from when the larger organism feeds. So these organisms pictured benefit, and the other one is neither helped nor harmed. So what type of relationship is that? Would that be commensalism, mutualism, or parasitism? As I mentioned, you will need to be able to read passages about this for your test and identify which type of symbiotic relationship is occurring. If you remember from your baseline test and also the Term 1 pretest that you guys took on the screen and projector, there's also species relationship identification on those two tests as well. And this is the end of the second recording.